What is Android activity? So in this video, we are going to learn about Android activity. Back in previous video, we have learned how to install Android Studio, and we have also learned the project structure of Android. In this video, I will be covering the topic Android activity. So let's get started. Here I have already opened the Hello World project which we have made in the previous video. So what is Android activity? When you launch any application, the screen you see on your device, this is the Android activity. All the screens inside the app, including a login screen, checking screen, this screen is considered as an activity. In simple word, Android activity is like a foreground process which you see on the screen. Same is with the contact application. As soon as you open a contact application or phone application, the first screen you see, this is an activity. Same is with this screen. Each and every screen in Android application can be considered or can be called as an activity. Now note that activity is not a background process. The difference between background process and activity is always on the front screen of user. Here in our Hello World project, when I created this project, Android Studio has already created a simple activity file, which is the main activity file. So main activity file is a entry point for the application. Whenever I create a debug button, as you can see, the activity will pop up on the Android virtual device with the Hello World. Now let's take a look at the main activity file so that we will understand what are the activities. Here in the activities, as you can see, activity is just a class. This is a class in a Kotlin, and then there is an extension component activity. Component activity is in itself is a class activity, and which it is inherited in the main activity. And then inside the activity there are multiple onCreate function, start, resume, pause function. This is basically a life cycle of Android activity. So this function onStart, onResume, onPause, onStop and onDestroy, these are functions related to the event of Android application. So whenever an Android application is created, onCreate function is called, and then when it is pause, then onPause function is called. And as soon as user destroys or stops the activity, onDestroy function is called or onStop function is called. OnDestroy function is called when a user has completely killed the Android activity. These are called the multiple events or life cycle of Android activities. Here in the main activity, you can see we have add the function set content, and we have added a main screen function which is a Jetpack compose function, composable functions. So this is basically a UI for our activity user interface. Now note that each and every activity has its own UI. You can create UI using Jetpack Compose, or you can use the good old XML layouts, but in modern Android app development we use Jetpack Compose like this. As you can see on the right corner, this is the preview of this Jetpack Compose main screen. So the text which we see here, we have, instead of drag and drop UI element, we create UI using the code. Like here we have added the text function, or you can call it widget. This text function or text widget create a text on screen hello world, and the column is basically column layout for our application. Currently it is a vertical column. Each and every UI is written in code instead of drag and drop. So for Jetpack Compose UI designing, I have already made few videos, and there is a separate playlist to teach you the entire UI designing and Jetpack Compose. It is available in the link in description. You can check it out. And also in this course, the fundamentals of Android app development, I have covered Jetpack Compose in the future videos. So in case if you want little bit overview, don't worry, you will learn in the future videos in this series. Now let's move forward with how to create an Android activity. Now Android application can have multiple activity depending on your uses. So let me show you how to create a brand new Android activity. We have already created the main activity, so we will not touch this. We will create a separate activity named myActivity2. To create a new activity, there are two ways. Android Studio has a template. Simply right click, go to new, and then scroll down to activity, and there are multiple activity templates as you can see. You can use any of this template, such as empty activity. Click on next button, and then here you can add the activity name and then click on finish. But let me show you a manual way to create activity. In this way you will understand the concept more better way. So to create Android activity manually, right click on this package name, go to new, create a Kotlin class / file. In this class file, we will name the second activity as myActivity2. So we have named the activity myActivity2, This is the Android class. Now to make this class into an activity, we have to extend with the component activity. So component activity is not the only class. There are multiple class which you can use, such as app combat activity, or you can also extend it with simple activity. But since we are using Jetpack Compose, we will be using component activity here. So next step is we have to create onCreate function. Create a onCreate function, and inside this function we have to add a one tiny line. So inside this onCreate function we have to add a one slight line, that is enableEdgeToEdge. So this line enableEdgeToEdge is very important because this line will prevent our Android activity UI and system UI overlaps. If you don't add this line, in modern Android device, the system UI and your app UI might overlap onto each other. To prevent that from happening, we write this line enableEdgeToEdge. In this way, the system UI and your app UI will not overlaps on each other. Now next is we have to create a simple user UI using Jetpack Compose. So here I have added the UI for our my activity to set content, and there is a Jetpack Compose function here, my activity 2. As you can see, it is similar to previous main activity UI because I have copy pasted most of it. Since this is just an example, there is column and there is a text with my activity 2 screen, and we can also see the preview. This is the preview. So now we have created a activity my activity 2, but there is one more important thing which we have to do after creating my activity 2 class. That is, we have to declare this activity in a manifest file. So Android has a manifest file, AndroidManifest.xml. Open this file. So this is the AndroidManifest.xml file. Open the manifest.xml file, and then inside this file there is an application tag. Open this application tag. Inside this application tag, now to add activity in Android, mention a tag name activity. This is the tag which I have created. Inside this tag, make sure you give a property Android name and add my activity 2. So my activity 2 is the name of the class, which is my activity 2. And then we have to add label. Label is basically the name of activity. And then we have to mention exported, whether it is true or false. So exported means this tell the Android operating system that shall we allow other applications to open this activity. If we make it false, which means only and only our own application can trigger and open this activity, and any other third party application cannot open this activity. This is important. And below here you can see there is another activity tab with main activity. So this is the main activity tag of our main activity, which is the entry point of our application. And since the main activity is the entry point of our application, so we have to add an intent filter here with the category launcher and action main. Adding these two lines tell the Android operating system that this is the main entry point. This activity is our main entry point. So whenever user click on the app icon, this main activity is created. Now after adding activity in the manifest, now next step is to open that activity. Now let me show you how to open another activity using programmatic way. We will go back to our main activity. Inside this activity, we will add a button. So here I have added a button with text inside it, which is open my activity. And I have also added onClick event. So what this onClick event does is, first we will create an intent. Inside this intent, we will add my activity to class Java. This tells the intent that we have to open my activity to. And then using the context, we have to start activity and add the intent inside it. So this context, we can get the context inside Jetpack Compose using local context.current. This will give us the current context, and we will use the context to start the activity. On the right side, as you can see, there is an preview of this UI with a button open my new activity. Now let's go ahead and debug our application and check if our new activity is opening or not. On top there is a debug button. Click on the debug button. So inside this Android virtual device, as you can see, there is a button properly appearing, open my new activity. Now I will click the button and open the new activity. As you can see, our second my activity 2 is open, and this is the screen of it, and there is a text my activity 2. This shows that our activity is successfully created and we can successfully open the activity. Now Android application can have multiple activities such as login screen, sign up screen, and then home screen, settings screens, about screen, etc. etc. When you click the back button, we can go back to our home activity, which is hello world. So now let's do a recap on what we learned in this video. First is we learn how to create a brand new activity, that is my activity 2. Second is we learn how to mention the new activity in AndroidManifest.xml file. And third is we also learn how to start a new activity when a button is pressed using intent. Fourth is we learn the various life cycle of Android activity, that is onCreate function, onStart function, onResume, onPause, onStop and onDestroy. This is basically a life cycle for an entire Android activity. To simplify the entire Android life cycle, you can also refer to this diagram which is available on official developer.android.com website. This is onCreate function, this is onStart function, onResume. Whenever an Android app is launched, the activity is launched, it is started with onCreate and then the entire life cycle is begin till onDestroy. You can refer to this diagram, this will simplify the process. So these are the fundamentals of Android activity which are essential for you to learn to build Android applications. Now I have made an entire playlist on fundamentals of Android app development. If you are interested in learning all the fundamentals, make sure you watch the entire playlist given in the description below of this video. So with that said, we have come to the end of the video. Make sure you like, share and subscribe. Have a nice day and bye bye. See you in the next video.